This is another video about scanning with the Epson V600 scanner, and in this video I'll be talking about scanning in photographic prints. But before I get into that, I'll just give you a little bit about the backstory as to why I bought this scanner and where I am now. So I used to live in the UK and I moved to Thailand in 2003, and back in the UK I did a lot of film photography. But when I moved to Thailand, I started digital photography and left all my film gear at home. My mother died in 2017, so I went back to the UK, and while I was there, I managed to retrieve quite a few of my negatives. Not all of them, but quite a few. So I brought those back to Thailand, and then I bought this scanner to scan them in. And I've made a few videos about scanning in 35mm negatives. Anyway, earlier this year, my father died, 6 years after my mother, and so I had to go back to the UK again, and it was the task of me and my brothers to clear the house, and there are a lot of old photos, a box full of them here. And because I've got a scanner and I've got experience of scanning in, I volunteered to scan in all the photos. What surprised me a little were the number of formats. There are 35mm negatives, which I'm familiar with, but also medium format negatives, and I never even realised that my father did any medium format photography. 35mm slides, and even medium format slides I've never seen before. So with all these formats, they're all transparencies. The negatives are obviously negative and the slides are positive, but mainly it's prints. And there's some very old ones. This one's from the 50s. This one I think is from the 40s, and one I found was dated 1927, obviously black and white, but there are some more recent ones in colour. And what gave me the biggest problem were the colour prints. Because what's happened over time is that they've sort of developed this very unattractive colour cast, and it seems to be more of a problem on glossy paper. When I was doing a lot of film photography and took my film into the lab, they would always ask if I wanted glossy or matte paper. And with the glossy ones, it gave the photos a bit more pop. So I normally chose glossy, but over time they haven't fared very well. The black and white photos and the colour prints on matte paper are okay, but the glossy ones don't look very good at all. So in the video, I'm just going to talk about, the process that I went through in scanning in the prints. I've explained this before, but just in case you haven't seen any of my previous videos, I'll just go through it quickly again. And not all scanners can scan in transparencies, and I'll explain why. The sensor that records the image is underneath this glass bed. And when you scan in a print, you put the print on the glass bed face down, and it uses a light source underneath to shine up at the print, and what reflects down is recorded by the sensor. It's different when you scan in a negative or any kind of transparency. You put the transparency on the glass bed, and this time a light source from above is used. So this scanner has two light sources, and that's why it can scan in transparencies as well as prints. So what you need to do with transparencies is to remove this white part, this document mat, and that exposes a light source above, and that light source above shines through the transparency, and the image is recorded by the sensor. So for this video, we're going to concentrate on prints. So prints are reflective. They will use the lower light source. So we need to have this document mat in place. Once you've opened Epson Scan, you need to choose a mode. And when I was scanning in hundreds of 35mm negatives, I found full auto mode to be very convenient. I was scanning in two strips of negatives, with 4 or 6 frames each, and in full auto mode that meant I could scan in 12 images without any intervention, which, you know, that was the fastest way of doing it. With my parents' prints, I've just been scanning in one at a time, so there's no advantage using full auto mode. Office mode is meant for documents rather than photos, so the options you've got are really home mode and professional mode, and I was using a mixture of both. Home mode has just got fewer adjustments than professional mode, but they're very similar. So let's go into professional mode, and if you haven't done it already, go into File Save Settings and choose the format you want your images saved in. I chose TIFF because it's uncompressed and lossless, and also where you want them saved, just choose a folder. As I explained before, the scanner has 2 light sources. For prints it uses the lower light source and that reflects off the print, and then for transparencies it uses the upper light source and that shines through the transparency. So for prints we want reflective. If you've got some transparencies as well, choose film and then choose positive film for slides or color negative film for negatives. We're going to scan in a print, so reflective, and I've got the document matte in the scanner that covers up the upper light source, so because we're using the lower light source. There's an option for photo or document. I'm not sure what difference it makes, but we're scanning with photos. With regard to resolution, obviously prints are a lot larger physically than transparencies and negatives, so you can use a lower resolution setting. And here there's no sort of hard and fast rule. It's entirely up to you how big you want your images. For transparencies, I think I was using 1200 dpi, and for prints I've been using 600, and that gives me images that are big enough for my purposes. With Epson Scan there are a lot of adjustments. That's good that you've got those options, but every one you choose adds some time to the scanning process, and if you choose a lot of adjustments it can make your scan time quite long. And whereas with negatives I found some of these adjustments to do quite a good job, I didn't really see that with prints, so I turned off all the adjustments for prints to get the fastest scan, and I've been doing all of my post-processing in Adobe Photoshop once the scan is done. So once you're all set up, just click on preview. You hear the scanner start up as it does the preview. And with this option you've got normal or thumbnail, so you can put a marquee around the photo, or you can flip the orientation. It's just going to thumbnail. Okay, so you can flip them round. Normally I just use thumbnail, and once I confirm that the scan looks okay, then just click scan, and that will scan it into the computer. Once you've scanned in your print, you need to open it with your photo editing software of choice. And I just stick to Adobe Photoshop CS6. I have used GIMP, a bit of a struggle because I'm not familiar with it, but generally I just stick to Photoshop, so unfortunately I can't talk about any other software. But when we open it, it appears in Camera Raw, and you can see there's quite a sort of horrible orange cast to this photo. So you could try to improve it in Camera Raw before you open it in Photoshop. I've tried that without much success, so I'm just going to to show you the way that I've been doing it, which is quite quick and effective. You know, speed is quite important to me. If I've got a lot of photos to get through, I don't want to spend a lot of time editing. So just open it in Photoshop. And at first I try to guess. You can see it's got a lot, you know, it's very orange. It's a big sort of orange cast, and orange is yellow and red. So you could go into color balance and then try to decrease the yellow and decrease the red. It's an improvement, but I found that as I removed one problem, I had another. If I took out too much red, I got too much cyan. If I took out too much yellow, I got too much blue. And that wasn't completely successful. Reducing the saturation works fairly well. If we go into hue saturation and then just reduce the saturation, you know, it looks more natural. But I'll show you the way that I've been doing it, which is pretty fast and effective. And speed is quite important to me, because if I've got hundreds and hundreds of photos to scan in, I just haven't got the time, you know, to spend an hour on each one in post-processing. So let's take off that adjustment layer. And what I've been doing, obviously, you know, you'd crop it first. Crop the photos as a white strip on the right hand side. So we just get rid of that first. You know, but basic things first. And the size as well, you know, maybe reduce it to 1500 or 1000 pixels wide. But all I've been doing, and presumably this adjustment exists in other versions of Photoshop as well, is going into Image, Adjustments, and then down to Match Color. And then neutralize, and as soon as you do that, you can see that horrible cast has gone. Looks a lot more natural now. Sometimes it's like a bit too much, and the image looks flat, you know. But by just adjusting these three sliders, you can put some of that color back. So just play around with the three sliders to get the colours and skin tones that you want. You know, once you're happy, okay, and then finally I just normally add some sharpening. Filter, sharpen, smart sharpen, and then depending on how blurred it is, just change the amount and sharpen it. That's the way that's the most effective and sort of fastest way I've found to get rid of the bad colour cast on colour prints. I hope that at least some of that was useful. If you have any tips of your own, please leave them below in a comment. I'm always looking to learn new things, as I'm sure are other people watching these videos. Thanks for watching.